Hello, hi, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back. Today, we're reviewing episode 10 of Boku dake ga Inai Machi. So let's get started, let's go now. So we begin with a flashback to graduation, back when Hinazuki and the others were abducted and killed. And it's actually really sad, but oh, guess what? Sensei seems way too happy. Like, yeah, it is a graduation where you're supposed to be happy, but he seemed way too happy. So now we flash to the present where Kenya, Satoru, and Hiromi are talking to Aya, and they're like, hey, what's up? And they're trying to talk to her and stuff. And it's really funny because Kenya and Satoru both start getting a little irritated and frustrated and mad at her because first off, she's reading a book that Kenya hasn't read yet. And then second off, I think she made fun of superheroes, which Satoru did not take very well. But it turns out that she actually realizes they're the kids who hide out in like the hideout across the river, and they realize, oh, their hideout is actually in plain view right here. But she ends up calling hideouts childish and silly, and Kuzo does not approve of that because Kuzo and the glasses kid were like hiding out. He like barges in and he's like, no, hideouts show a man's adventurous spirit, and she's like, okay, peace now, you guys are weird. Before she leaves, Kazuo actually invites her to their hideout. And, well, guess what? The next day, they're like on the lookout for her and they're about to go like hop on over to the other side and be like, hey, what's up? But guess who shows up at their hideout? She does! And I think Kazuo actually has a little thing for her, and we kind of see that because the next day, he's like, okay, bye, I'm gonna go meet up with Aya. And it's like, oh, cute. And then Satoru's like, well, I guess I don't have to really worry about her anymore. I can't even deal with Hiromi. Hiromi is so cute, and he talks to them about how he really thinks it's a great idea, and it's so awesome that they're getting rid of people's alone time, and he would know because he's always at home by himself because his parents are off working and stuff. And I'm like, Hiromi is just so cute. I can't deal with it. Of course, playing detective is not over yet. Satoru begins to like think of the possible like people that it could be, and he thinks that it's probably someone that his mom knew because she knew who it was in the future. So Satoru also thinks that he's probably looking for a substitute now that like his three main candidates have been taken away, saved pretty much. Satoru and Hiromi are walking home, and Hiromi mentions that he's seen Misato, which is the girl who did the whole lunch money issue and was rude to Kaio. He mentions that she's been really lonely ever since that whole incident, and Satoru's like, well, don't worry, I'll talk to her the next time I see her. Satoru finds out that she's been invited by Sensei to go watch the hockey game, and Satoru's gonna go check that out, but his friends are like, oh, do you want us to come with you? And he's like, no, it's fine, like, I'm gonna go on my own. That's obviously not a good indication that they're like, hey, you want us to go, and like that the show shows that, because we know something's gonna go down if they're like, if the show specifically shows that there is opportunity for them to go and he declines. He definitely should bring them along, but he doesn't. And he ends up going, and then he sees her, she's all alone, and then he sees that she ends up going to the washroom, and then he goes to follow her and she's taking like a long time, and he's like, whoa, what's taking her so long? And he gets nervous, and I feel like he's just about to barge in there when guess who appears? Sensei, sucking on one of his lollipops. And he's like, oh, Satoru, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, you know, just doing things. And then Sensei reveals that Misato had actually gone outside, and Satoru's like, oh my gosh, and he like goes outside, and guess who's there? Yuki's dad is driving away in the truck. And Satoru's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And he's like, Sensei, this is the situation, I need your help. And then guess who Satoru's in a car with? Sensei. First indication that it's a bad idea. Satoru's seatbelt doesn't even work, and Sensei has to literally like jam it in there for it to work. Not a good idea. Always have an escape route. Always. Ugh. Satoru ends up talking to Sensei about Misato and how he thinks it's like his fault. Satoru even uses Sensei's line, like filling up the hole in your heart, and Sensei's like, whoa, that's my line, I was gonna use that at graduation. And while this is all happening, Sensei's like tapping on the car wheel, and they're making a very giant point of like focusing in on that, and it's also just really annoying. So like, I'm like, what is this? Why is he tapping his finger? Obviously we're supposed to notice that. And Satoru does notice that, and he thinks it's like, oh, he's getting agitated because he wants to smoke or something. So he's like, oh, I'll get you some candy. opens it up. Boom, no candy. Sensei is like, there's no candy there. And it's like, and they enter a tunnel and mood atmosphere is going on. And then at that moment, Sensei reveals that that's not his car that he's driving. And then he flashes this really scary smile. Satoru reads the thing and he's like, oh my gosh, these are laxatives. And then Sensei is talking about like, oh, I tried resisting the idea that you knew what was going on. And Satoru, while this is all happening, is obviously freaking out. I would be too. And then he drives the opposite way of Yuki's dad, and Satoru, that's the moment when he knows he's screwed. Turns out that Sensei had planned the whole thing about how he invited Misato and how he told Hiromi and how he gave Misato laxatives at the right moment, and then how he ordered bento boxes from Yuki's dad, and like that's why he was there, and everything was just a part of his plan to see if Satoru was actually figuring things out. And that's kind of the moment when Satoru realized that, well, he saw that Sensei's name was on the list of potential suspects back in the future, but he dismissed it because his mom's name was also on the list, so he's like, oh, these are just random names, it's fine, but obviously they weren't. Sensei has this whole talk about how this is sublimation for him not being able to achieve his desires, and that Satoru is actually one piece for the town, and obviously he has to kill Satoru is the whole meaning of his message. Sensei ends up saying like, oh, I'm gonna leave this town, and he puts a little basketball thing. Oh, at this point they're at like a river or something, and Satoru obviously can't get out of the seatbelt, and Sensei has this basketball and he puts it on the pedal, so then Satoru's into the river. He's gonna drown him. Sensei's like walking away, and Satoru's like, I know your future! And then you see that like that's what makes Sensei stop, and then we see Satoru like having like these like flashbacks and whatnot. And then bam, end of the episode, of course. Overall, this episode was intense. Oh my gosh, it was just a lot to deal with. I know a lot of people, because I watched this a little later than everyone, was pretty upset because they were like, wow, it was so obvious that Sensei was the killer. But either way, I still found this episode like really exciting and intense, because just watching it happen was still an intense thing. Like regardless of if we knew it was him or not, it was still really intense to see the interactions between Satoru and Sensei, and to see the side of Sensei that we didn't really know before. Like we knew he was a killer, well, we assumed that he was a killer and whatnot, but we hadn't seen that side of him. So I still found this episode interesting. It just got my emotions all riled up because I was like, oh my gosh, we finally get that confirmation of that assumption. And I liked this episode. A lot of people I know didn't like it that much, but I liked it because I was still very into it. And at the end, what's gonna happen? So I hope you liked my review. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys are all amazing, and thank you guys so much for watching. I make a bunch of videos a weekend. Bye!